I grew up in Eden Prairie. So my family actually moved to Eden Prairie in 1963, and it was very much just a farm village. Nothing here but cornfields and a handful of neighborhoods. And I had a great childhood, and I loved it, and I didn't want it to change. Hi, my name is Dave Lindahl. I'm the Economic Development Manager for the City of Eden Prairie. I've worked for the City of Eden Prairie for 39 years, almost my entire career, but I've had this position for about 23 years. And the job basically involves kind of a lot of interaction with the business community, kind of helping oversee development in Eden Prairie, mainly on the front end of development, and also very much involved in large infrastructure projects like light rail transit. I'll go back to our comprehensive plan. I think our first plan was adopted in 1968, and the individuals, planners who put that together really saw that, for Eden Prairie was going to grow rapidly, and we were going to have a pretty healthy population, 60, 70,000 people, as many workers, that we really needed to look to other modes of transportation. But they understood that we're going to probably need more than cars and roads to be able to accommodate the amount of growth that we're going to have in Eden Prairie, and to be able to move people freely and well. And so, yeah, I think mobility, looking at different mobility options in transit, I think has always been a priority. From the perspective of our comprehensive plan, it's been a priority from day one. Late 80s, the conversation started, and Hennepin County got pretty serious because they acquired that right-of-way that ran from Minneapolis all the way through Eden Prairie and past Eden Prairie. Fast forward 10 years, then things got really serious, and they started talking about, okay, we are going to try to find an alignment. The city staff was very supportive because at the end of the day, having greater mobility in Eden Prairie is good for the economic development of Eden Prairie. It just clearly is. And of course, as the economic development guy, I was very much in support of the idea that, hey, anything that can give us a competitive advantage over other communities, and make Eden Prairie a more desirable place to live and work, because people would have options outside of their car or even a bus to get to their job, whether it's downtown or in Hopkins or wherever. And then the greater conversation really was even allowing another opportunity for commuters to get out to the jobs in Eden Prairie. Eden Prairie grew very quickly from that little farm village I talked about in the 1960s and 70s. And, we have 60,000 workers that come to Eden Prairie every day. And so, to find another option for some of those workers to be able to get out here, especially if they're transit dependent, I think became a pretty obvious kind of priority and kind of yes to the idea of light rail. When I went out and met with CEOs and asked them, hey, thank you for being here. How do you like Eden Prairie? Give us any observations. The number one thing was, what can you do about 494? What can you do about, we're having a hard time moving goods and people, getting our people here. So that was a constant concern, I think, for a lot of our stakeholders and residents and business owners. So hearing that, if there's an opportunity to bring another mode of transportation that just helps move people, we recognized early on that was not going to be the panacea and solve all the congestion issues. There was a lot of trepidation by businesses about what this would mean for Eden Prairie and what would it mean for their business. But I found most of the businesses, as we talked, recognized that this could add value to their business, to their real estate. There's another way to get people, whether it's residents if you own an apartment project, or if it's workers if you have a business. Most of them made that connection, and it wasn't necessarily a difficult conversation. We met weekly for at least a couple years in these issue resolution teams, and I found that to be a really effective and kind of fascinating way to work through kind of a lot of really big issues, especially for Eden Prairie. There would be 30 people in the room. Everybody had a role. Like my role a lot of times was to get up and say, well, I've talked to so-and-so business, and it's over their dead body to put the train tracks next to them. A big focus for Eden Prairie when we were planning light rail was to not interfere with our existing roads and transportation systems as much as possible. So we wanted the tracks grades separated from from the roads. People take it for granted, but we spent a lot of time on all that infrastructure that was coming into Eden Prairie, all those bridges. We spent a lot of time trying to think about how can we beautify that cement. And it wasn't easy. I think at the end of the day we did a pretty good job. of that overall. Probably must have been in 2013 or 14 where all the cities said, we agree with this final design and locations of stations. So economic development to date from light rail, I think, has been pretty significant in Eden Prairie, and I know in some of the other communities as well. So developers obviously were looking for opportunities around the light rail stations, and we were looking for developers to find opportunities around the stations in Eden Prairie. In fact, we created a new zoning district around all of our stations that would allow redevelopment at higher densities in order to kind of help create little urban villages, if you will, in a suburban community. We were really advocating more vertically integrated development like you'd see in downtown, where you have commercial on the first level and maybe housing or office and above. Another really great example is up in the Golden Triangle area of Eden Prairie, which is primarily a business park with a lot of industrial flex tech office, and not a lot of housing. We were really pushing for more housing and commercial uses around that station. And a project called The Fox and the Grouse has emerged by a developer, Greco company. And it was, it's a really risky kind of thing, right? To go up into a business park and start to try to transform it into more of a housing neighborhood. But they took that risk, and it's paying off. We just did a tour with a group of residents up there, and the first phase is done, and the occupancy is beyond what they expected. So that's a lot of detail, but by and large, we have had development, I think, catalyzed as a result of light rail. And even though the trains aren't running yet, and the projects needed to stand on their own 2 feet without light rail, they needed a pro forma, as they call it, they recognize that being near a station in the long run will be good for their residents. But I do think the amount of development that has emerged kind of around the whole conversation of LRT has been really good for Eden Prairie, and in a way kind of surprised me. We're really looking forward to having that additional option, that additional mode of transportation available to our residents and for our workers and commuters. I think we still have some opportunities to figure out ways to get people from the stations to their place of work, kind of that last mile, half mile challenge. All the heavy lifting has pretty much been done. So now it's just that excitement of getting the trains running. When I'm on my e-bike, retired, driving around the project, what will I remember most? Honestly, I remember most just the good people that were really trying hard to do the right thing for the project.